now these things are all ticked, so won't they just all go?
No, because we were battling to get them to start earlier, and then I turned them all on, and I think it like activates them, but it's the controls in the other one that dictates it. Yeah. And I'm supposed to send flipping recordings to.
No, it can wait till lunchtime.
Oh, we're not to.
Yeah.
Okay, so check on yours. Back to your home, you can sit here. So you already see my stream. Oh, but it is actually streaming it now.
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. A nice break. We've had something to drink, something to eat. So I think it will be good if we can start our next session. Please come in and have a seat so that we can start our session. So in 1 minute, thank you.
Everybody pay attention, cause whatever I'm going to nation is an illness to aviation. Hey, female genital mutilation is enough to this generation. Hey, my grandmother, sister, my mother, and any leader. Everybody take this soda. FGM is a disorder. My sister, listen what we say. Every part of your body is perfect. Can you wake up from the older days? Cause FGM is a big mistake. Young girls are suffering. Our elders are something to settle this. Female genital mutilation. FGM is killing our nation. Young girls are suffering. Our elders are something to settle this. Female genital mutilation. FGM is killing our nation. When I look on my sister, bleeding blood, I feel the pain. When I look on my sister, shedding tears, I feel the pain. Let's come together, fight illiteracy after illiteracy, fight FGM, the cause of all this is march of illiteracy. Look for solution to stop this. Let's put a lot of effort to end this. Let me cry once and for all. My leaders are my parents. Hey, let me cry once and for all. NGO and government. Hey, young girls are suffering. Our elders are something to settle this. Female genital mutilation. FGM is killing our nation. Hey, young girls are suffering. Our elders are something to settle this. Female genital mutilation. FGM is killing our nation. They say FGM is painful, causes diseases like septicemia, complications during childbirth, also diseases like anemia. Let me cry once and for all. My leaders are my parents. Hey, young girls are suffering. Our elders are something to settle this. Female genital mutilation. FGM is killing our nation. Young girls are suffering. Our elders are something to settle this. Female genital mutilation. FGM is killing our nation. Our
Nikamate, simbwage. Baby, let me be romantic. Hard to judge, we don't mind them. Navuta picha, little teacher. Mambo joro joro, mama bonita, urembo mororo. Nakuja, baby nakuja. Allow me, baby nakuja. Nakuja, baby nakuja. Allow me, baby nakuja. Kama jali, bie, wako nyanga nyanga. Uodari utafanya nilie, wakini nyanga nyanga. Nakuja, baby nakuja. Allow me, baby nakuja. Nakuja, baby nakuja. Allow me, baby nakuja. Oh baby, Jo, closer. Oh baby, come closer. Kwani umeumbwa kwa udongo ama umefinyangwa kama dongo? Baby, kwani umenipiga zongo wala? Nakuja, baby nakuja. Allow me, baby nakuja. Nakuja, baby nakuja. Allow me, baby nakuja. You make a good boy a sinner. Baby, believe that you're mine. Every other day I will need ya. Yeah, you know that I don't need ya. Baby, believe that you're mine. By your side, nobody knows your life. You're gonna be my wife, and I will always be your guy. By your side, nobody knows your life. You're gonna be my wife, and I will always be your guy. By your side, 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 I'll be there. Oh, when I look at you, I see the one I love, I see the one I need by my side. Oh, when I look at you, pressure tawakikesha kutusema wakichoka talala unaniweka roho juu. Yes, I was born for you.
Okay, good afternoon once again. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. The session is going to focus on innovation to advance bodily autonomy, women's rights, and SRHR. So thank you, welcome. Sorry, we were trying to sort out our virtual speakers, making sure that they come online and can participate in this session. So for this session, I would like to invite the speakers whom I have in the room here. May I please request Sherry to come and to the stage. Sherry, please welcome. And also Ismail Omar, please join me here on the stage. A round of applause, please, as they come on stage. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so we are waiting for Sherry to come on stage. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll have also online speakers. So we have Amina Umhoza, who is currently in Rwanda. She wasn't able to join us for the summit, but she'll be participating from online from Zoom. And then we have Anna Kulaya from Tanzania as well, Wildaf, who will also be speaking with us throughout this session. So in this session, this is what we are hoping to share with you, to have a discussion with you around what does it really mean for the young woman, for women, to have the right, you know, to choose, to make decisions over their own bodies. So having the right to bodily autonomy. So that's what we are going to be discussing here with us today. And so let me kick off the conversation with Ismail, who will be taking us through that. Ismail Omar, from who is head of policy and advocacy at AMREF, as well as the Girl Generation. So, thank you. So, I don't know if it's working. Bodily autonomy, and how is it important to women and girls, especially those at risk of undergoing FGM and child marriage?
Yeah, thank you so much, Grace. I'm Ismail Omar, and really excited to be part of this, what looks to be a very summit. So, bodily autonomy. So, simply means women and girls in all their diversity. You know, wherever they are, who they are, you know, have the right to exercise their sexual reproductive health and rights. They're able to make autonomous decisions about their bodies without coercion, you know, without violence, and without discrimination. This can also mean that sexual reproductive health and rights has to be freely accessible, acceptable, available, and of high quality. And also, it also means that those who work in this space, and especially the feminist organizations, the CSOs, the development agencies that work in this area, that these institutions are strengthened to advance sexual reproductive health and rights. And also, it also means that government is also a very critical actor in this work, because it is the role of the government to be able to promote, to protect, and to invest in sexual reproductive health and rights, and within, I will say, within the global health frameworks, for instance, the universal health coverage. And as I conclude, I just want to share that as we all do this work in terms of you know, improving SRHR or working on SRHR, I think challenging issue has been to transform gender. Sorry, there's a problem. Let's just go ahead. I think the greatest challenge has been to transform gender and social norms, to be able to really promote gender equality. And I think those are very critical. And even when we're trying to transform gender and social norms and promote gender equality, I think we need to apply intercultural, intersectional, and human rights-based approach and ensure that we are leaving no one behind. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ismail, for really explaining that what is meant by bodily autonomy to me and to young women, to all women here in the room, really having that choice, having that right to make the choice of what happens to your body. And I think when it comes to FGM, child marriage, many women do not have that choice to make. So this is really important for our young girls to make sure that we eliminate FGM, we eliminate child marriage, because it really fringes on that right, on their right to make a decision what happens to their body. So next, I would like to who is online. I hope she can hear us. Amina, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome, Amina. So Amina leads an organization called SAE Dutakaze, and she has developed an innovation, a community solution on menstrual health, providing information on SRHR in her community in Rwanda. And so, Amina, kindly describe how your innovation, how you started your innovation, the work you are doing, as well as what has been the role of community involvement in implementing that solution. Over to you, Amina. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be part of this. First of all, I started the Kigali menstruation station that is founded by my peers. Also, I'm in partnership with SAE company. It's actually like a safe space for adolescents where they come and learn about sexual reproductive health without being stigmatized. And we've been able to make sexual reproductive health a fun and engaging topic to talk about by bringing different fun activities like comic books, like games to normalize this conversation. And how I can actually define.
Amina, we can't hear you. Oh, maybe would you like to turn off your video? Maybe that will help in terms of the bandwidth, because we can't hear. Thank you. Okay, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So for me, I can define a community-led innovation as an innovation that involves the people it serves. So in our case, we are serving the adolescents. So the people we serve are adolescents. And we have been able to engage them from the design phase. What it means is more when you're starting to brainstorm what you want to do or the solution that you are bringing on table, instead of bringing that solution and then impose them to the community, you have to involve them in the design phase. And that's actually what we've done. And also taking the people that you serve as the expert in the field, instead of only viewing them as the beneficiaries, just only going to be involved in the implementation phase. And taking the organization that I had as a case study, even before we start involving with the community, we started with the research that happened in the community that we're targeting to serve. And we also shared with them the programs that we wanted to put in place. They have made some adjustments that we see that are really playing a very key role in the achievements that we've done, because so far we've been able to train 7,010 adolescent, and Kigali Menstruation Station serves over 2,000 adolescents each and every month. So involving the community in the solution that you wish to create really helps a lot, because it has even removed the challenges that we were expecting that we will face, like cultural backlash or not being involved as we want, or even not being able to reach the target number that we were envisioning. But because we involved the community, we involved the local leaders, it was more of a partnership. It was more of as if they were owning, as if actually they were not owning, but because they really own the solution. So it really helped us to really create the impact, the positive impact that we really were envisioning to create. And I recommend each and everyone to be able to involve the community in each and everything that they do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amina. Just as a follow-up question, could you kindly share with us some of the successes of your solution, what you're doing on the ground? What, from the start, since the initial implementation up to now, what have you say you have observed as the most successful strategies you have used to make sure that your solution work? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can say that's something that we are really proud of as the team of SAE company, Ducatas, and also the initiators of Kigali Menstruation Station, is the way menstruation and sexual reproductive health is now a normal topic to talk about in our community. And this is really something that is very crucial, because if we are talking about different challenges that women face, adolescents face, the period poverty, not accessing SRHR services, but then we are forgetting the stigma that comes in it. It's really challenging. So having our community being really supportive and to the point that they were even allowing boys to be part of this change is really amazing. And I can also share something small that really touched us. At Kigali menstruation station, we have our bathroom. We have the bathroom for boys and girls, and we have something that we call period proofing. It means to put menstruation materials in the bathrooms so that they can access them, as normally in the toilet there are toilet papers. So we decided to put there the boxes of pads. So we had this crazy idea. We were like, okay, then let's also put this box in the bathroom of boys. After some days, we came back and we couldn't find the pads there. So we're asking ourselves, where are the pads? Then we found out that boys are coming and taking the pads to their sisters. So it really made us really happy to see the support, how they are normalizing periods, how they are curious to ask questions about menstruation, how they are revisiting their memories of how, because at Kigali menstruation station, we even asked them, we know you are not menstruators, but how did you feel when you first see a girl menstruating? So like they visit those memories, and then they be like, okay, I don't want my girls, because I'm going to be the future father, or I'm already the brother. I don't want my kids to also face what I've experienced. So it's really, really good to see the support, to see the solidarity in young people, which really proves that the future that we are envisioning is indeed going to be great. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Amina, for sharing that with us. It's really good to hear that you have already seen some successes, especially around breaking the stigma around menstrual health, SRHR, and also having men or young men engaged in this campaign because of your work you are doing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I come to you, Sherry. Thank you for joining us here on stage. So this is the next question for you. I know you have done a lot of work around looking at some of the solutions, whether digital or non-digital, around promoting bodily autonomy for young women and girls. So I just wanted to we want to hear from you, what are some of most promising innovation in the field you have seen that are accessible and equitable for all women and girls?
Okay, thank you very much, Grace. So my work revolves mostly about around research on law and data protection and privacy issues, and therefore that also led me into looking into issues of even sexual reproductive health rights for women and girls and gender diverse people. So I would say that not so much of innovation, of being innovative and new right now, but basically I would peg it to COVID. At the end of the day, we look at COVID as a very negative part of our history, but also there is a silver lining to COVID. And one of those is the advancement and even the acceleration of uptake of some of the innovative solutions that were there before, but had not been really been taken up. And even there are some instances where there's new innovative ideas and new solutions that are coming up in the market. So some of the innovative solutions that we've seen that have really been accelerated post-COVID was the use of chatbots. Chatbots basically means where you are able to type in your inquiries about, for example, your health. Women can type about looking for information, and then they can get information back telling them maybe, for example, a diagnosis or a prescription, something like that. And also with COVID, also there was an increment of online consultations where. And when you look at issues of sexual reproductive health, most of the times for women, it's really a taboo issue, and it's something that has always been really under harsh tones. So having a platform where you can do this at the privacy of your home, it was also very forward facing. And then also the increase of mobile applications that providing health solutions. So for sexual reproductive health issues, for example, menstrual cycle tracking applications. So when you look at this, yes, these ones existed even before COVID, but there was an uptick because with COVID there was restriction of movement, there was a lot of restrictions. So more women and girls were using these applications. For example, if you can look at the context of Kenya, we have had a lot of advances in this situation that are very positive. For example, before and even right now, we are not yet out of the woodworks, but most women and girls use foreign developed applications. But now you're seeing, for example, UNICEF recently launched an application called this is Kenya, OK Kenya. And then also before that, also another one that is developed by Kenya is one that is called Flora app. So having these solutions that are bred, because you have to understand the people who you're serving, their needs. Therefore, this is such an innovative an applications, and having them built in Kenya for Kenyans is very, very important. And also the advancement of home testing kits for sexually transmitted diseases, and even for pregnancies. And so women and girls are able to use this at the privacy of their homes without any judgment, because before, and the good thing is now you can even order online, so you do not have to go and face anyone. It's basically at the privacy of your home. Before, most people would really shy away from going to buy these tools and on this medication, but now you are able to do it at the privacy of your home. Also, with, again, these ones existed before, but also there's been an advancement in terms of webinars and even YouTube channels where people are talking more freely about. We have the professionals, and then we have people who are just talking about their experiences, and that sharing of knowledge by women and girls who have gone through these things, who are talking about contraceptives, who are talking about pregnancies, who are talking about issues even of abortion, and even sharing knowledge about, as recently as maybe 3 weeks ago, there was someone who was sharing about a medical established a hospital that was providing services for tying your tubes. And these are things that we did not see before. And even when you talk about these things, before, women who did not have children, if you went for those services, you also sometimes turned away. But now you have these platforms where people can share these things freely and normalize these conversations. And then also you had asked about what can be done to ensure that these solutions are accessible. So as you've heard, most of these solutions are online based. And when you talk about online issues, when you go on the online platform, one of the things that comes up is the issue of cost. Cost in terms of buying a smartphone. You have to consider that there are women and girls who are from middle and lower income communities that need to use these applications. If you only provide these solutions on smartphones, then that means that you're locking out these people. So there are solutions now that are actually, for example, Flora app, and I think Kwanele, I think it's not in Kenya, but they are. You can use them to get the same services. For example, tracking your menstrual cycle, getting information about your cycle, contraceptives offline. So that eliminates the issue of affording a smartphone. Also, when you look at the issue of accessing the internet, you need bundles, and bundles are very, very expensive. So when you offer these solutions on the offline platform, then you treat that, okay? And then also, most of these solutions, most of them actually are in English. Let's say for English-speaking countries, they're not in local languages. And when they're in local languages sometimes, or even in English, they're in very technical terms that some women and girls would not ordinarily understand. And when you go further into this conversation, we'll be talking about data privacy and how impactful it is, then you understand that if those solutions are in technical terms or in languages that we do not understand, then you're not serving, because then women do not know if they are receiving help from these solutions, or if they are exposing themselves to privacy issues and surveillance, for example. Also, to ensure that accessibility, of course, partnering with government and even civil society organizations. And when you talk about government, the funding of research and funding of innovation, so that you're not, even when you're looking at the laws, ensuring that the laws and policies of the country also build up or also promote innovation. So it's a wholesome thing. So I'm also, just to call into issues of funding by the government, by private organizations, so that we are also building these products and ensuring that girls and women all over, without leaving out anyone behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that comprehensive explanation on what is working right now, what applications, mobile applications that are there that provide information on services that women and young girls need, especially what you have mentioned, services for SRHR services as well. So thank you so much, and also for highlighting some of the challenges in accessing these applications that have been developed. So just building on the challenges we just mentioned, I come to you. If you can just share with us some of the biggest challenges around achieving bodily autonomy. I know Sherry has just touched on some, but if you can go ahead and give us further information on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Grace. I think where we need to begin from is understanding the global magnitude of this issue. 45%, almost half of all women and girls between the age of 15 and 49 who are married or in a union cannot make decisions about their sexual reproductive health and rights. And this is in relation to contraception, this is in relation to healthcare, and even their own sexual practices. For instance, even just saying no to sex. That's where we're beginning from, just to understanding the magnitude of this, especially right now where most pockets of the world, they're being faced by humanitarian crisis. We have an increase in maternal deaths. There's so much that is happening. Probably we will need another session to just talk about those effects. Also, looking at the statistics as well, looking at adolescent girls, you'll find that those who are in the lowest wealth quintile are 3.7 times more likely to give birth before the age of 18 than those who are in the higher wealth quintile. And that shows, again, poverty and the social inequalities play a key role in barricading the work around improving SRHR outcomes for girls and women. So some of the issue maybe I would like also to address is around gender norms and stereotypes, and I know you have captured a few, about our societal expectations and cultural expectations. And I know in this room, in this very room, some of the girls and women in this room, even some men, I will say at some point somebody has tried to persuade you to do something against your will. This could have been either you're being asked to marry somebody you don't want or you don't like, or you're young. I think in the society today you find that, and especially for girls and women, the way the patriarchy society is, girls and women are told to do everything. They are told, this is how you eat, this is how you dress, this is how you do things. And I think those kind of societal and cultural implications really affect the bodily autonomy of girls and women. And maybe that's a conversation now we need to have, because we are saying, for us to be able to shift power, so the question is, who has the power in this room? If I asked you, who has the power in community, who would you say?
Chiefs.
Who? Yeah, men. I heard somebody saying men. Men have the power in because of the patriarchal nature that we're living in. And so, and most of the time you find that men and governments and systemic oppressions continue to curtail the rights of women and girls. And this is not to say that men and boys are not critical allies. Men and boys are also critical allies, and I've seen most of them are even now champions who are championing for the rights of girls and women. So when you talk about shifting power, is ensuring that we are empowering the girl to ensure the girl has power, has agency, the girl is able to exercise their own rights. So in the case for FGM, for instance, if a girl knows her rights, knows where to get help, this girl can run away and go and tell the chief that my parents want to cut me. That is the kind of agency we want. And then we need to, as much as also looking at the structures that we have, like we've been in situations where men, if you talk about religious, cultural leaders, most of them are men, to my surprise. And you find that most of the time we also want to use the same systems that have continued to oppress women and girls to make decisions about women's bodies. So this is something that I personally have a challenge with, where we try to use the same systems that have continued to oppress girls and women to make decisions about the bodies of women and girls. Because if today they agree and say, today we are stopping FGM, we are stopping child marriage, the same system can come tomorrow and say, whatever we say, we have revoked what we said. So shifting the power is the girls and women themselves taking that power, and if there are any support from men and boys or the systems, the government, is for them to acknowledge that their support is because they acknowledge the rights, that women and girls have rights. So going back to the other issue is the lack of comprehensive sexuality education. So there is inadequate comprehensive sexuality education. And this is, and I know even in this room, there could be even, there's a lot of opposition from parents, let's be honest, from religious circles about comprehensive sexuality education. But the inaccurate sex education that is there and paramount leads to a lot of misinformation, leads to misconception, which again lead to misinformed health choices. And that's where you get our girls today are getting pregnant. There's a lot of teenage pregnancy. There's a lot of STI and HIV. So I think the government needs to and I know we have of course government arm that really supports what we do. I believe it's a call to the government of Kenya to really see if we can be able to say we have, or we should be having, a comprehensive sexuality education. Then, of course, there's stigma and discrimination. And I know even in this room, I like giving examples because even here, opposition is not verified. See, in this very room, I know we have our views about abortion. I know we do. All of us, we have our own views about abortion. And you'll find that there's a lot of stigma and discrimination around abortion, around STIs, and this curtails girls and women from accessing reproductive health or SRHR commodities and services and information. Then, of course, legal restrictions. Of course, we have restrictive laws and policies, and those who are working in this space, this is a very lonely space. People working in this sector, I will tell you, even if we meet each other, we are the same people. Because it's a place that faces a lot of opposition from everyone, from the parents, from the church, from everyone. So it's a very lonely place. But again, the work has to continue because, again, we're talking about bodily autonomy and the fundamental human rights for girls and women. Then limited access to healthcare. I think that is also something that we need to address. There are still girls and women who cannot be able to access commodities like family planning commodities, or even information, or even education on SRHR. And so I think that is also a challenge, and maybe within the UHC, and I'm happy the government of Kenya has really managed to invest in UHC. We are hoping that we are going to translate those policies into actions. We are going to close the funding gap when it comes to healthcare access and SRHR access for girls and women. Then the other issue is coercion and pressure. So and this comes from us here, from our own families, from our own partners. There's a lot of coercion and pressure, and these kind of forces hinder the ability of girls and women to be able to translate their dreams into productive and fulfilling lives. Of course, child and forced marriage. Can you imagine subjecting girls to early pregnancy? And also the language. Trust me, especially in the Western world, there is nothing like child marriage. It's pedophilia. But the framing, what we say here is what? It's child marriage. So there's nothing like child marriage. If you are consummating with a child that is defilement, that is rape, whatever you want to call it, that's how we need to see child marriage. It's violence. It's a form of violence. And also, consummating with a child, there's so many effects. There's reproductive health challenges, and also the case of the 9-year-old girl from Narok who was married at 9. I don't know, by the time I think she was 12, she get complication. I don't think she lost her baby and all that. I think we need to really examine and change the narrative. And not only about child marriage, also about FGM. We need to change the narrative. FGM is not just about the cutting that happens. Touching the genitalia of a child for non-medical reasons is child sexual abuse. But the framing that we framed, FGM is a cultural practice, FGM is a religious practice. There's nothing cultural or religious about FGM. Touching the genitalia, that's where FGM begins. The psychological effects in terms of the anxiety even before the cut, and I've not even spoken about the psychological effects that happens after the cut. So I think we need to reframe the language about FGM and child marriage so that we can be able to frame all this and violence against women and girls. And I'm happy that the AU Convention on Ending Violence against Girls is already they're already asking for contributions from the public. How can we ensure we have a convention that speaks for us, that clearly adopts the language that we're talking about, that clearly talks about investments, member states being accountable in terms of ensuring that they're able to act, and not just commit in conferences, but they're able to translate some of the commitments into actions. And finally, I want to talk about sexual violence. Of course, we all talk about defilement and rape and how this leads to, of course, unwanted pregnancy and STIs, and of course, limited access to contraception. And this also curtails girls and women from making informed choices about, family planning and reproductive health issues. And the last statement we want to talk about is innovation and how this is coming in. So the innovation that we are looking at, and this UNFPA is looking at, it's innovation that is able to accelerate, first of all, availability. Do we have available, education, information, and services and commodities for girls and women? We are talking about innovation that can accelerate accessibility. Is this, how can we ensure girls and women are able to access these services that we're talking about? And finally, can we have technology and innovation that ensures acceptability? Because there's one thing to have knowledge products or commodities or information, but is that acceptable by the people we serve? And finally, also it is the role of technology and innovation to ensure that we are able to ensure that the products that we are developing, be it softwares and apps, or information materials, service, digital products, that these are of quality, are of high quality, and that and when the design is happening, that the most affected are involved in the design of those products. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ismail. Thank you for that information around highlighting some of the challenges that we are facing as women and young girls in terms of really achieving our bodily autonomy, having access to SRH services, really having our, what can I say, women's rights, my right to make a decision over my body. So thank you so much. Let me come back to Amina. Amina, are you still online with us? If you can please share with us how you have managed to, what strategies have you put in place for your solution to make it sustainable and have a lasting impact?
Thank you so much. I would say that something that really helped us mostly is revisiting our vision, the vision that we set. Because even as innovators, even as a founder, it's really important to go back and take a second to remember the reason why you started what you started and what really inspired you. So that was the first thing. Another thing is having a team that is motivated. Mostly the people that we work together, my team, we are all young people. The reason why we chose to work as a young people is because mostly when we're doing community outreach programs or focus group discussion, they were telling us that the problem that they mainly have is the fact that sexual reproductive health information is delivered by old people, most of the time who are the friends of their parents, so they're not free to talk to them, because at the end of the time they know, my parent is going to meet with my teacher at church, and then start to be like, your girl is starting to ask some funny questions. So that's the reason why they choose to hold themselves back. So having a team of young people that is really motivated really helps us to continue to work. Not just a team, but a team that is really connected with the impact or the challenge that we are looking forward to solve. Another thing also is to have the partners in place. I remember when I was starting Saye Company, I was just a passionate young girl who decided to join the power and the aspiration with other young people. But really we didn't have some of the technical or knowledge in terms of structures, in terms of the policy, but through the partnership, through meeting with the other young youth-led organization, or even the bigger organization that really invested their time to empower us with the skills, really helped us to be able to shape our solution in more sustainable way that can even attract other partners to join us. Another thing that I cannot forget is connected to the first question that you asked me, is holding strong to the community, because the community can even be the source of motivation. When you see someone, a young girl that you have impacted, coming in the holidays and be like, can I volunteer at Kigali Menstruation Station? Or my friend is meeting with this challenge, how can I be of help to her? Something like that. It really motivates, and it shows that there is sustainability way where there can be a snowball effect in terms of like transferring the knowledge to other uncountable people. Last but not least, is also involving the economic aspect to this solution, because most of the time when you're talking about sexual reproductive health, the solutions that come are more into teaching, education part, only like the social part, but we also tend to forget the economic aspect, which also, of course, the poverty is also among the root causes of teenage pregnancies. So for us, we decided to take that root cause of poverty into creating the economic aspect that can be a source of revenue stream to sustain our solution. And that's where we've been able to train, to empower the teen moms with the technical skills on how to make home decoration items, and then we sell them. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. We are helping them to be financially important, financially stable, as they're also increasing the financial part of our organization, not only to be relying on the grants. So and another thing that I can say is this journey is all about learning and unlearning certain things. So when your mind is really key and open to that, you will get sustainable. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Amina, for that contribution. I like what you said about what you have used in your sustainability policies, more about, revisiting the vision, having a committed team of young people, making sure that the community is always involved, and also the economic empowerment aspect of it, which ensures sustainability. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Sherry, before I go to the audience to ask if they have any questions for you, if you can just tell us what are the biggest concerns when it comes to all these, digital apps that are coming up, and how does that relate to the women's rights and to the bodily autonomy?
Thank you very much for that question, Grace. So when we talk about these innovative solutions, we do not, we should not leave this room thinking that these are bad things. First of all, they are great tools, for example, to curb so many things. So for example, in cultures where women cannot, for example, there are cultures in Kenya, for instance, where once you give birth, you cannot leave home for maybe 40 days or something like that. They can use these solutions. And also, if you look at the issues of even the cost implication, if you were to go for and considering that as women, our bodies change so many times. So in the duration of a month. So if you were to go for a checkup each and every time there was a change in your body, you can only imagine the cost. So when you have these applications and these solutions at your fingertips or on your phone, then you're able to cut the costs of seeking medical health and consultations. So on the very face of it, they are they're very, very important tools. However, through our research on whether, for example, our research was focusing on menstrual cycle applications and whether they are complying with data protection laws. In Kenya, we had our data protection law passed in 2019, and with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, my initial thought was the geopolitical impact of it in countries, for example, that do not have data protection laws, first of all, and there are countries also that completely prohibit abortion, for example, and therefore then women and girls would then, if they use those applications and the data that is being collected, it could be used to surveil them and even prosecute them, and that was the reason why we started this research. So what was revealed to us, at the back of your mind, let's just remember that these solutions are good, but there are some situations, there are some things that need to be corrected, and not necessarily deleting the application, but also this is a call to look for applications that are complying. So first of all, the first thing that we realized was that, as I'd said before, most people use foreign developed applications, and they are collecting a lot of information about you, your personal data. So as you'd imagine, if a menstrual application, for a menstrual cycle tracking application, they would probably need only, like, for example, the dates that you have your period, maybe the symptoms. But we looked at some applications that collected your location data, that collected information about third parties who are saved on your phone, for example. And therefore that means your children, your sexual partner is also, that information is also shared with them. And you can only imagine how risky that is for even other people who are not involved in that situation. So the first thing is, there's a lot of data that is being collected that there's no explanation, and the law requires that if you're collecting my data, as much as it might be a lot of data, you explain to me as a user so that I understand what you're collecting it for, what you're going to use it for, how much time you're going to take. Also, we also realize that in most applications, when you look at, and I know most of people, by a show of hands, how many people, when they download an application, read through the whole privacy notice? All of them. So I'm going to be very honest. I'm a data protection and privacy professional, but sometimes I also get challenged, because we also found out that for a research that says that an average user of applications, all applications basically, how those policies are drafted, they are very, very bulky. And it will take so many days out of a year to actually, if they're condensed into days, it will take almost past a month to read all the privacy policies of all applications that you use. And therefore, you can imagine when you put it now in for example, menstrual tracking applications, if it is too bulky, it is 45 pages, surely I will not read all of it. Therefore, meaning that I do not know what I'm consenting to. I do not know what information you're collecting. I do not know which third parties you're collecting and sharing that kind of data with. And therefore, that transparency is therefore not there at all. We also noticed that in most of the applications, there is no limit to storage. The law requires that you communicate to your users how long you're going to keep their data. So for example, if I today said I do not want to use my Flow app again, I don't know if it's going to be deleted, and if it's going to be deleted, are they also going to delete with the third parties that they're sharing this information with? So that cross use of my data, there's no transparency again in that, and that also breaches the principles of data protection. And then, of course, as I'd said before, the complexity of these privacy policies, not just the length of them, but also the language that is used. Very technical terms. Even if I took time to read your 25-page policy, but it was in all technical terms, it would not make sense, because at the end of the day, I come out having read 45 pages with nothing at all. I have not understood what you're saying. So what you say that for you to be compliant, you also need to ensure that you're using very simple, very clear words. And what I've seen even in other applications, when they now use local languages, they tend to use very, very technical terms that are not usually used. For example, in Kenya, our Swahili is it's not as conk as the Tanzanian Swahili, but you'll find that sometimes when people draft policies, then they use they use the Kiswahili sanifu, which is not used by the common mwananchi. Therefore, then I do not understand what you said. I am just accepting so that I can use this application. And also, we realized also one of the most of the major apps that are breaching these policies, breaching these laws, are actually the major ones, not the small ones, as you'd expect. I mean, so we found out that one of the major ones, the policy was actually in Polish, and most people still use it. That means they did not read it; they just accepted it as it was because I need the service. And it's here, so I can use it. And when I look at the reviews on for example, on Apple or Google or Play Store, it's one of the ones that has the highest check mark or the highest star. So I use it, but we do not really understand. And also another thing that you have to also consider when you're looking at issues of privacy and consent, for example, how do you seek this consent? Is it conditional? So the law is very clear that when you are seeking for consent, it should not be conditional on something. You'll see some of these applications, when you look at the privacy policy or the consent form, it already has a check mark for you. When you open it, it already has a check mark. That is not consent, because psychologically the play is, if I see a check mark as an ordinary person, I think this surely is what is supposed to, it's what is supposed to be the correct thing. And therefore, it also psychologically communicates to me that this is a thoroughly drafted application, and I am safe to use it. So issues of consent, if I have to consent in order to use the application, then it is conditional, which is also wrong. It should just be unconditional. I am supposed to use your application whether I consent to your terms or not, when it comes to issues of data privacy and protection. And I know you're rushing, but we also noticed that there are no, and this is for anyone who is not aware of issues of data privacy and protection. There are supposed to be data request forms where I can be able to get in if I have any complaints. For example, if I want to ask why is maybe some of my information not correctly put down or anything, I'm supposed to have a request form where I can also still ask those questions. Most of them did not have. We looked at one application that had, for you to use it, you had to uncheck almost 500 third-party companies in order for you to now communicate that you do not want your data shared with them. What happens is, usually the right procedure is, if use your application, then with the same one click, I'm supposed to now refuse for further processing. So these are some of the things, these are some of the challenges that you've applications.
Very much. I'm Monica from Sierra Leone. My question is to all the panelists. And so when you are giving your statements, you made mention of bodily autonomy, access to reproductive health and rights, and as well as some of the innovative solution you've put in place digital-wise. So I want to know, let's look at the disability lens you looked at, because when we're talking of access to reproductive engaging So my question is, when we're talking of reproductive health and rights, some of the innovative challenges or solutions put in place, like the other speaker from Uganda make mention of some innovative solution that are using app and the likes. So let's say you have a girl, a young woman with disability, and let's say visual impairment to be specific, and she cannot have access to these digital gadgets. So how do you make provision for them? And also, when we talk of reproductive health as well, you also made mention of contraceptives. So for us, from the country I'm coming from, having access to contraceptive is a challenge because of two barriers. We have the structural barriers, that is one, and we have the attitude barriers. Talking of the structural barriers, some of these structures are not disabled friendly for people for wheelchair users, people using crutches and the like. And also talking of the attitudinal barriers, that is the attitude of health workers regarding persons with disabilities. So if I walk to these health centers demanding for contraceptives, probably the health worker, we have these community health centers. The health worker is from the same community, and the attitude towards us, one, you have a disability, probably you're in a wheelchair or you're visually impaired, so what are you doing with contraceptives? So how are you engaging also these health workers in ensuring that they have a friendly attitude towards girls and young women with disability to have access to sexual reproductive health and rights? And you also make mention of sexual and gender-based violence affecting girls and young women. Also note, girls and young women with disability are also victims of sexual and gender-based violence. So how are you using the disability lens to fight for them, to advocate for them, also for their safety in communities? Like for my country, Sierra Leone, in 2021, we have a case wherein one of our colleagues, she's speech and hearing impaired, and she was gang raped, and later we lost her, she couldn't survive. And so we did a black protest, which we called Black Thursday. We went to the Ministry of Justice, went to the police head office, went to the Ministry of Social Welfare, seeking for safety, seeking for justice. But it all ended. They are doing our protest. So we want to know what strategy or processes you're putting in place in ensuring that you demand for the safety of girls and young men with disabilities. Thank you.
Okay, you can give the microphone to the lady in green. Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution and for your questions. So we take 3 questions and then we come back to the speakers to respond.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Lerato, and my question is for both of you actually, except for the person who joined us online. The first question is regarding the applications. Excuse me, sorry, but the phone decided to lock itself with my question. Regarding the applications, so you spoke about the third-party, conditions and stuff. So for women who are, I would say, abused and violated in their homes and have access to the apps, after probably asking for what's the self-testing kit or anything, do you have follow-ups for them? Do you do follow-ups if they have ordered the self-testing kit? Do you do a follow-up to check whether did they get, what type of results did they get? And also for those ones who would report violence, do you have referrals for them? What kind of systems do you have in place? And how do you protect the data? Because you just spoke about the terms and the conditions. And the question to my gentle African brother over there, you spoke about, making sure that people that people, our bodily autonomy, we make decisions for our body. So how do you engage policymakers? Because most of the times, you know, decisions, we can come up with innovative ideas on ending gender-based violence, ending or getting comprehensive sexuality educations in schools. But if policymakers, who are the gatekeepers, and that's in inverted commas, are not budging, how do you engage them? You know, because you know, as civil society, as activists, it's really tiring. So how do you get them involved in ensuring that, you know, we get the policies, and also women who are the receivers, or at the end of the receiving end, they do become part and parcel of those conversations? Because if we're speaking about comprehensive sexuality education, teachers need to be there to speak about the things that are happening in schools, the young girls that are falling pregnant in schools. If we're speaking about menstrual health, we need as women to be there to make the decisions about, you know, zero tax and all those.
Million consumers are lit up in electricity across the entire country. That basically makes 14% of the population, meaning the rest of the almost 50 million of our population actually are not well lit. So when we focus and we move harmful practices, innovations, and etc., whether in sexual reproductive health of FGM, for example, because in Samburu, we're dealing with cases whereby even the women themselves have accepted FGM. So we are innovating about the stop of these particular practices, but we forget the process that is indoctrinated in their psychological systems. So in a place where there's no electricity, people do not have technological advancements, no phones, no place to charge their phones whatsoever, places where these practices happen in the dark, and there's no even accessibility of those sexual workers. Why would we be fully rushing on a front hold to innovate, to stop FGM, if we cannot go back and first counter the process? My last question, because I have 2 minutes. In the presentation by the gentleman in regards to even by the touching of children genitalia, it being a harmful practice, rather just it being illegal, and even coinciding it with different languages like pedophilia in the rest of the world. When we do capture these people, where is the clear legislation? Who takes the responsibility once we report? Who takes up the costs to follow up and get justice for these people? Do we arrest the mothers? Do we arrest the perpetrators, the traditional, the ones that are doing the cutting? Who exactly takes the consequence of the legal blame after FGM has been done? Because clearly when we engage the communities, they're wondering what they're reporting and for what they're reporting for, if there's no legislative clearance of what exactly they're going to get after that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for those questions. I first want to go to Amina online. Amina, can you hear us? Would you like to come in and respond to any of the questions that have been raised?
Yes, I think the first question was addressed to me, but I didn't hear it correctly. It was breaking.
I think the question is around how do you, as you are going at the community level, implementing your solution, you know, raising awareness around menstrual health, SRHR, and all that. How do you include young girls or young women with disability? So have you ever encountered that as you are implementing your project at community level?
Yes. So mostly we partner with other organizations, mostly the ones that have access to people living with disability. Many the trainings or the services that we offer at Kigali Menstruation Station, we deliver them to their places. But I also acknowledge that there is still a gap that we really have to fill in regards to the infrastructures that we have here. And we are really committed to doing that. And there is also another thing, because for example, the training materials that we have in place, like comic book, and the games are not translated in the language that people living with disability can be able to access. And it's really something that we are looking forward to work on by finding the partners in place who can help us to really package the message that we offer in the way that is not leaving anyone behind. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ismail, Sherry will come in.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the questions on innovation, I think leave them to my sister. So I think I'd like to first of all begin with the question on policymakers. How do we engage them? I think they're very critical actors and we need to engage them. But of course, the question I want to ask you, should we wait until we have a law in place to ensure girls and women are protected or that they have access to SRHR? It's a challenging question, right? So I think as much as, because I know some of these policymaking processes can be very lengthy, I think the process, of course, has to begin to really getting into the root cause of the issue itself and mapping out your stakeholders and especially the opposition. So not only those who support you, but also the opposition. And in this space, as I said, it's a very lonely space where the opposition is just, I think, too much. So I think it's also critical to determine the ask, also be very clear on what you're asking. And I know working, especially in a very conservative, patriarchal society, sometimes it can be very challenging to try and communicate these issues. And that's why our key messaging should be very well positioned to ensure that you are not doing a lot of harm, especially if you want to win, you want to especially, get some quick wins in what you do. And so I think, what I will say is that, for instance, also it's good to look at the other aspects of the law. For instance, in Kenya, there's right to information. And I know organizations who are already working on abortion issues, they provide this information to girls and women on where you can get misoprostol, or where you can get, drugs, So it's important that we also look at other aspects of because it's one thing to provide somebody with information. And then when you're talking about bodily autonomy, it's somebody's right to use that information how they see fit, as long as it is for their own protection. And so that's how I'll respond to that. But I agree with you. It's very critical that we do engage policymakers, and we are surprised most of them are men. And we all know in Africa, most of our MPs are also men. So it's very challenging. And that's why we need more women. That's why we need more women in political spaces. In Kenya, for instance, there are societies that have never had a woman MP, especially like in Kisii County. I don't think there is a member of parliament from a single constituency who has ever been elected in Kisii since independence. So that shows you, for instance, the kind of patriarchy that we have, and also other communities probably that are probably not be able to mention right now. So I think women should get into leadership, and then maybe we can also continue with advocacy and see how can men be better allies for women. And that's a question I think I've tried to answer in many forums. How can men be better allies for women? I've said it's good we listen to women, and that's why even in this space where I'm in right now, I'm acknowledging my privilege as a man. I'm less likely to be cut, less likely to be married before the age of 18, less likely to die when giving birth. So it's always good to acknowledge that privilege that you have as a man in society for you to be a better ally. It's good to respect women's spaces. So understand when women are having their thing, sometimes understand they need their safe spaces to share. So don't feel like as if you have been left out. Women need to have their own feminist spaces where they can, have opportunities to share, their experiences and whatnot. The question around, I think I'll leave the one on power to you, in terms of electricity. I'll leave that to you. Then maybe I will talk about the law. So the law in Kenya, there's a clinical analysis that is currently being done. Because, for instance, the law indicates that a girl or woman who volunteers to be cut is seen as a perpetrator. While in real sense, actually, she should be seen as a victim. Because to be honest, I don't think anyone would consent to violence. Because it is the culture, is the cultural forces, it is the peer pressure from maybe older girls or the family members that these girls end up, even volunteering to be cut. So I think there is a process that is going in terms of repealing the law, especially the law in Kenya. There are a couple of loopholes, especially around language, around proportionality. And so I believe, I think that is a very important question. And especially for your case in Samburu, I think, as you're saying, that there's a lot of, it's an area that the FGM prevalence is very high. And also you are asking how innovation can come in where girls and women do not have access to smartphones. So I think, so that's why I said, even when we're designing these technologies, it's important that we have the end user, the most affected person in mind and in the design phase. And so I believe there are also alternative ways of engaging them, but the question is, how do we address the digital divide? There's a recent data from Girl Effect shows that girls have access to, more boys have access to mobile phone than girls. And we have parents in this house. I know you probably don't give phones to girls because you're protecting them and you love them. You don't want them to be, you're protecting them. And so in fact, if you look at that data, if you look at the reasons why girls are not accessing mobile phone, there's so many reasons. It could be poverty. It could be that the parents are protecting them from harm, and this harm could be violence, could be them engaging in some naughty behaviors. That's why they don't have access to phone. But the question is, how can a smartphone benefit a girl? That's the question, again, we need to ask ourselves. And I think there are positive ways in which we could ensure that our girls have access to this digital products, because at the end of the day, we are living in a digital age. Right now, we are using AI, ChatGPT, and very soon we are going to have a cashless economy, and we're going to have what we call digital assets. So if from the onset, girls are not there even in the design of this, technological, tech products and commodities, what will happen? In 50 years, 30 years from now, we'll be talking about where are the digital assets for girls, because that's where the world is going. So I think we also need to really ensure that we try, as the government, as people working in the development sector, try to address that digital divide. And yeah, so let me stop there, and then maybe she can respond to the other questions. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just go into the issue of policymakers, and my comment briefly is that regardless of how forward thinking or how progressive our legislations and policies are, if you do not have a cultural shift, then you're not doing anything. So it has to start from the people themselves. And that is communities. Like, how are you teaching your people? Right now, you can look at social media. These children are learning things. And if you do not have parallel platforms where they're being taught about, for example, consent and prevention of gender-based violence, then we are not going to do anything about, we are not going to solve these issues. And that's the reason why, as much as sometimes even in the Kenyan parliament, there was an uproar on issue of comprehensive sex education, we still need to have those conversations and solve this, because they are learning the negative. Therefore, it's only good that we also have that platform to eliminate or water down whatever they are learning from the social media. The question from Lerato, or first of all, let me go into the issue of bodily autonomy and on disability inclusivity. So because most of the developers are if you look at the percentage, there's a very low percentage of developers who are people living with disabilities, and therefore that does not translate into their designs. And therefore the international community has come together to ensure that there are laws that ensure that you have to ensure that your applications actually are accessible to persons with different disabilities. For example, how, like, do you describe the images? Do you describe how, like, what is the lighting? What is the font? But most of the times you see that most of the times, because of that privilege that most of the developers have, then they do not include this. But this is something that every developer in the house should also consider when they're creating their platform, so that they're ensuring that they are accessible to everyone. And then also Lerato's question on third-party sharing of information, on whether they follow up to do checkups. Lerato, I am a lowly lawyer. This is the work of designers, but also say that yes, as for developers also, from the point of view designing that application or that solution, you have to ensure that these are things that you're also considering, because it doesn't make sense to create an application or a solution then that does not serve the people that you want it to serve. So if they came to me, then that's the advice that I would give them. But also, you also asked on how do you protect such data, and therefore when you talk about data protection in applications, we talk about data protection by default and by design, that you're embedding embedding privacy solutions in your design. So for example, I know most of us here, if not all, we have used Zoom. When you get into Zoom, the first thing that you see is that your video is off and your microphone is off. That is one of the ways that you know that this is an application that is by default to protect your privacy, so that you opt into to whether you want your video on or whether you want your microphone on. So those are the things. When you're looking at applications now, from now on, now you look at this, you look at these things. Any application that asks you to opt in, most of the time you'll find that then like, I'm not saying that is that they're clean, but that is one of the indicators that they have embedded privacy in their systems. And also on the issue of electricity and access to information where we do not even have electricity in the first place, I think then localizing community education. We have barazas, we have chief barazas, you have community workers who go around. Then now we have to also just meet us where we are at. If that is what works for us, then that's what works for us, so that you're not building applications that cannot be used. They don't make sense to that market or that population. Just ensuring that every solution that you have actually communicates and applies to your community. Okay. And then the last question was on the issue of children. And I just wanted to, as Ishmael had talked about the touching of children and FGM, and the differences in the terminologies. For example, pedophile. And you had asked who takes then responsibilities. And of course, I acknowledge that this is a cultural thing, that sometimes we don't even have as many cases reported and even prosecuted. First of all, we need disintegrated data to just show us exactly how many. And I like to, in the morning, we were talking about having now portals where we put in data and we can follow up on that. And I think if you had that kind of data, it would even inform the research and the solutions that you're coming up with. One of the things that I would commend Kenya, for example, is that when it comes to issues of children, when it comes to prosecution of issues of children, for example, sexual harassment or defilement, and of course that would then also go into FGM. Once a case is reported and it is in court, you as an adult, and most of the time it's out of coercion and out of what will the people in the community say, or sometimes they're even paid, you cannot withdraw such a case, because then the court says what the thinking or the rationale behind it is that this is a child, they do not have capacity to consent or withdraw a case. So if we follow this to the letter, then the perpetrators then will be prosecuted regardless of what influence they have at the back. So these are some of the progresses that we are making, and hopefully we make even more progresses. We make even more laws that actually talking to the problems that we have, that are responding to these problems that we have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you, Amina. Thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Sherry, for your feedback on those questions. We have come to the end of our session. I think we have gone over 20 minutes. I'm very sorry, but we really needed to hear all the conversations, what our speakers wanted to share with us today, this afternoon. So thank you so much. Thank you to Sherry, thank you to Ismail, thank you to Amina online, and thank you for your contribution, and thank you for listening. Thank you very much. I think we can go for lunch now.
But the music we making it touch your soul. Take you to a place you never been before. Africa tunaika mia tu most bana. I'm Kenyan, so you know I'm a marathon runner. Unaishiaje vi basic, nika kesho iko promise. Na kuna era sitesi, napenda album ya Chronics. Nyuma yangu na jeshi, nomba niende mbali, wanakungojea